Overtoun Bridge is a 19th century stone crossing in Dumbarton, Scotland. It is 50 feet above a rocky gorge. It is, by all accounts, a pleasant place to walk. Since the 1950s, at least 300 dogs have jumped from it. More than 50 have died. The dogs that survived the fall have, in several documented cases, been brought back to the bridge by their owners, only to climb the parapet and jump again. All of the dogs that have jumped are long-nosed breeds. All of them jump from the same spot on the right side of the bridge, near the end. None of them have ever jumped on a rainy day. Animal behaviorists, veterinarians, paranormal researchers, acoustic engineers, and representatives of the Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals have all investigated the bridge. One of the SPCA investigators had to be removed from the bridge because, while standing at the point where the dogs jump, she reported a sudden and overwhelming urge to jump herself. The official explanation is that the scent of mink, nesting in the gorge below, draws the dogs over the wall. We investigated the mink theory. It accounts for some of what happens at Overtoun Bridge. It does not account for all of it. And it does not account for what we found in the 1994 incident records, which are not, despite what the local authorities have said, closed. Overtoun Bridge was completed in 1895. It was built by the White family, specifically by James White, who had made his fortune in the chemical manufacturing industry and acquired the Overtoun estate in the 1850s. His son, John Campbell White, later elevated to the peerage as Lord Overtoun, inherited the estate and oversaw its expansion, including the construction of the bridge. The bridge connected the main road to the approach of Overtoun House, the baronial manor that dominated the estate. Architecturally, the bridge is unremarkable. 3 arches in pale Scottish stone, spanning the Overtoun Burn, a small stream that runs through a steep-sided wooded gorge. From the road, it looks like hundreds of other Victorian stone bridges in Scotland. The gorge below is perhaps more dramatic than most. The ravine drops sharply. The rocks at the bottom are exposed and uneven. The trees on either side create a sense of enclosure. But it is not, visually, an unusual place. For the first half-century of its existence, nothing unusual happened there. This changed in the 1950s. The earliest documented cases of dogs jumping from the bridge date to approximately that decade, though the phenomenon was not widely reported until much later. Local residents began referring to the bridge as the Bridge of Death sometime in the 1960s. The nickname did not attract external attention for decades. In the 2000s, coverage began appearing in newspapers and online. The story spread. Dog owners who had experienced the phenomenon began coming forward. The pattern that emerged from their accounts was consistent. A dog, calm, healthy, on a routine walk, would reach a specific point on the bridge, change behavior suddenly, and jump over the parapet. The pattern was too consistent to be coincidence. But no one had been able to explain it. The consistency of the phenomenon is what makes it genuinely difficult to dismiss. When you collect the accounts, and there are hundreds of them, from multiple decades, from different dog owners who did not know each other, certain details repeat with a precision that suggests they are describing the same thing rather than a shared misconception. The dogs always jump from the same location. Not approximately the same location, the same spot. The right side of the bridge, in the final section near the far end. Witnesses consistently describe the same point. Dog owners who had walked the bridge before and after incidents have noted that other sections of the parapet show no particular attraction. The pull, whatever it is localized to a specific area of perhaps 10 to 15 feet. The affected dogs are all long-nosed breeds: retrievers, collies, German shepherds, Springer spaniels, Labradors. Brachycephalic breeds, dogs with short, flat faces like pugs and bulldogs, have no documented incidents at Overtoun Bridge. This is not a small sample size distinction. Over decades, in a country where both long-nosed and short-nosed breeds are common companion animals, the absence of any short-nosed breed incident is statistically significant. The jumps occur only on clear, dry days, not overcast days, not rainy days, not days of heavy mist, which are common in this part of Scotland. The weather condition is a consistent variable, and some dogs, having survived the fall, have been brought back to the bridge and attempted to jump again. This detail is particularly difficult to explain. If the jump were an accident, a dog losing its footing, a dog spooked by something and fleeing in the wrong direction, the return and second attempt would not follow. Something draws these animals back. The leading scientific explanation for the Overtoun Bridge phenomenon was developed primarily by animal behaviorist Dr. David Sands, who conducted field research at the bridge in 2005. Sands proposed that the scent of mink, which had been introduced to the Scottish Highlands in the 1950s and had established populations in the area, was the primary driver. Mink produce a particularly pungent musk. Their territorial scent markings are detectable by dogs at distances far beyond human perception. The mink that nest in the gorge below the bridge would deposit these scents on the rocks and vegetation. A dog crossing the bridge, particularly a long-nosed breed with a highly developed olfactory system, might detect the scent strongly enough to override its normal caution about height and open parapets. Sands conducted a simple experiment. He exposed 10 long-nosed dogs to a variety of scents, including mink musk. Approximately 70% of the dogs moved directly toward the mink scent. He concluded that the scent attraction, combined with the particular construction of the Overtoun Bridge parapet, which is high enough that dogs cannot see over it, meaning they cannot visually perceive the drop, could explain dogs climbing and jumping the wall. This theory is plausible. It is probably correct in broad outline, but it has several problems. The most obvious: mink are not unique to Overtoun. They are distributed widely across Scotland. Dozens of stone bridges cross gorges and streams in areas with established mink populations. None of them have attracted comparable documentation of dog jumping incidents. The breed specificity supports the mink theory. Long-nosed breeds do detect scent more acutely, but it doesn't explain why the pull is localized to a single 15-foot section of the parapet. If mink scent were rising from the gorge, it would be detectable across the full length of the bridge. Dogs don't jump from the other sections, and the weather correlation, jumps only on clear days, fits the mink theory in one respect. Scent disperses differently in humid and dry air, and mink musk would be more concentrated and detectable on dry days. But the correlation is stark enough that it suggests the attracting stimulus, whatever it is entirely absent on rainy days, not merely reduced. The mink theory explains some of what happens at Overtoun Bridge. It does not explain all of it. What the SPCA investigator experienced at the bridge has been mentioned in passing in several accounts of the Overtoun phenomenon. It has not been fully reported. What is publicly known: a representative of the Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals visited Overtoun Bridge as part of an investigation into the dog jumping incidents. While standing at the specific point on the bridge from which dogs have been documented jumping, she experienced something she described as a sudden compulsion, an urge to climb the parapet and jump. She was removed from the bridge by a colleague. The SPCA's investigation was subsequently closed without a formal conclusion. This detail is routinely used to reinforce the paranormal framing of the Overtoun story, as evidence of a supernatural force affecting humans as well as dogs. We are not claiming it is evidence of the supernatural. We are asking a different question. What does it tell us about the physical or environmental properties of that specific location on the bridge? The human vestibular system, the inner ear structures that govern balance and spatial orientation, is sensitive to certain frequencies of infrasound, electromagnetic fields, and atmospheric pressure differentials. Humans standing at cliff edges and open heights sometimes report an intrusive impulse that researchers have described as the call of the void, a cognitive phenomenon related to the brain's processing of height-related risk signals. But the SPCA investigator's experience, as she described it, was specifically a compulsion rather than an intrusive thought, an external pull rather than an internal cognitive event. We reached out to two researchers who have studied the Overtoun Bridge phenomenon independently. Both noted that the SPCA investigator's experience has never been formally documented in any public record. Both noted that the acoustic and electromagnetic testing conducted at the bridge, including the assessment of potential interference from Faslane Bay's nuclear submarine facilities several miles to the northwest, was conducted along the length of the bridge, not at specific points within it. Neither could explain what she experienced. Both said, "It's the part of the Overtoun story that nobody has adequately addressed." In October 1994, a 32-year-old man walked onto Overtoun Bridge with his infant child. He told police he believed his baby was the Antichrist. He threw the child into the gorge below. The baby survived the fall and was taken to hospital. The child died the following day. The father was arrested, tried, and declared criminally insane. He was committed to a psychiatric institution, where he remained for several years before his eventual release. This event is part of the public record. What is less commonly noted, and what we found when we cross-referenced the 1994 incident documentation with the accumulated data on dog-jumping locations, is that the precise point from which the father threw his child is documented in the police report. It is the same point from which dogs have jumped. We want to be careful about what we do and do not claim here. We are not saying the 1994 incident caused subsequent dog jumps. We are not saying there is a causal relationship between the two phenomena. We are not making a claim about the supernatural significance of that location. We are noting that the two phenomena, which have been investigated entirely separately by entirely different agencies with no documented cross-referencing of their conclusions, share a precise geographic point on a 60-foot bridge. We are noting that the local authorities, when asked about this overlap, told us that the 1994 case was closed and the records were sealed as part of standard procedure in cases involving declared insanity. We subsequently located documents related to the 1994 incident that were not sealed. Specifically, the initial response reports filed by the first officers on the scene, which were processed under a different case classification and were therefore not included in the sealed material. Those reports contain a detail that was not included in any subsequent coverage of the 1994 incident. The father, when he was found on the bridge, was not attempting to flee. He was standing at the parapet. He told the first responding officer that something had told him to go to that specific point, that he had not planned to come to the bridge, that he had been walking in the area and had felt pulled toward it. The officer's report notes that the father appeared calm, that his calmness was disturbing, not the agitation of a man in crisis, but the settled behavior of someone who had done what they had come to do. We are not drawing a conclusion from this. We are laying it out. The Overtoun Bridge phenomenon has attracted researchers from multiple disciplines over the past 2 decades. None of them have produced a definitive explanation. The acoustic engineers who tested for infrasound and electromagnetic interference along the bridge found nothing unusual. The animal behaviorists who studied the mink theory found partial support, but not a complete explanation. The paranormal researchers have proposed theories that fit some aspects of the evidence, but cannot be empirically tested. The local council has installed warning signs advising dog owners to keep pets leashed when crossing. The signs have not stopped the incidents. What the bridge doesn't tell us, what it actively resists telling us, is why that specific spot. The mink theory is most plausible when you consider the gorge as a whole. Mink live there, their scent rises, dogs detect it. But if that's the explanation, the entire right side of the bridge should show equal attraction. It doesn't. The pull is localized. The acoustic and electromagnetic testing was conducted along the length of the bridge, not in a grid pattern at specific points, not with instruments sensitive enough to detect variations within a 15-foot section. The testing was designed to look for a bridge-wide effect. If there's a point-specific effect, that testing wouldn't have found it. The SPCA investigators' experience, the sudden compulsion at a specific point, suggests there may be a point-specific effect that the standard investigation methodology wasn't designed to detect. We are not claiming to know what that effect is. We are noting that nobody has looked for it in the right way. Here is what we know. Since the 1950s, hundreds of dogs have jumped from the same spot on Overtoun Bridge, all long-nosed breeds, all on clear days. Some have survived and returned. The mink theory explains some of it, and not all of it. An SPCA investigator felt a sudden compulsion to jump from the same spot. In 1994, a man threw his child from that same spot and told police something had pulled him there. The bridge has been tested for infrasound and electromagnetic interference, and nothing unusual was found. But the testing was not designed to look for point-specific effects. Here is what we don't know. What localizes the attraction to a 15-foot section of a 60-foot bridge? Why the SPCA investigator felt what she felt? Whether the 1994 father's account of being pulled to that specific point is relevant to what dogs experience there. Whether the testing that has been done was adequate to detect whatever is actually present. We're laying out what we found. You decide what it means. If you know something we don't, you know where to find us. Subscribe, share this, and leave a comment, because Overtoun Bridge is still there, and people are still walking their dogs across it. And on clear days, something is still waiting at the far end of the right parapet.